I hand it? Right there. I got you. Wonderful. Wonderful. Are we on? Are we on? Well, hello. Wait a minute. I heard that rousing applause for Beto. I said, hello, Midwest. Well, the good news is you got to see Beto. The bad news is he's not talking. It's all me tonight. I joke. I love you too. I'm joking. So, my name is Gina Repass. I am so proud to be the chair of the Kansas Democratic Party, and I'm so glad to be here with you tonight. And let me say, on behalf of Russ Carnahan, the chair of the Missouri Democratic Party, got some Missourians in here? Russ is my really good buddy, and on behalf of Russ, thank you all for coming. Let me please thank Beto O'Rourke for coming to the Midwest, coming to the Kansas City, Missouri area, not forgetting us. Oh, thank you. All right, my job is to be brief. First and foremost, are there any elected officials? If you are an elected official, can you please stand and be recognized? I don't care if it's school board. I don't care what it is. If you are elected, right there. And we have a candidate in the room. We have a candidate running for governor in the room. Okay, so we're about to get to the man you wanted to hear. I know you all love me and my new stilettos, but let's get to Beto. So my job is to real quick give you a quick warm-up message, and here it is. My name is Gina Repass. I am the daughter of a civil rights activist. Don't jump to the activist part. Live at the civil rights part. Because my mom used to say to my brothers and I, when we were growing up, you guys are getting too comfortable. You're too comfortable. And I shouldn't say it conversationally. She had heat on it. And one day I got bold enough to say to my mom, but Mom, isn't that what you guys marched for and went to jail for, sung those songs so that your children could be comfortable, your children could live in comfort in this country? And my mother said to me, looked me in my eyes and said, absolutely not. We marched and we went to jail. Some of us died, not so you could get comfortable, but so that you could have equal access, so that you could have equal rights. Don't you dare get comfortable with this country. That's what she said to me. And ladies and gentlemen, I now understand what she meant. Being comfortable, here's a visual for you, you're all smart. Getting comfortable is like coasting, right? You understand the physics of coasting. You cannot coast up. Can't do it, physically impossible. So right now, if you want your civil rights back, if you're tired of seeing people disappearing off the streets, if you're tired of seeing our veterans kicked off to the health care, you're tired of seeing your neighbors kicked off the health care, if you are tired of seeing billionaires get tax breaks while you can't send your kids to school, it is time to get comfortable being uncomfortable. Get comfortable being uncomfortable. And now let's get Beto up here so we can talk to you about it. Get up on your feet, get up on your feet, and welcome Beto O'Rourke.
Let's do it. Let's do it. All right. Can we hear it for the chairwoman of the Kansas Democratic Party? This is a fighter, and we need a fight right now. And speaking of fights, how about those Texas Democrats? They are in the fight of their lives. They're in the fight of our lives. They're in the fight for the life of this country. What they do and what we help them to do is going to define this country, each and every single one of us alive at this moment in America, forever in history. And it will determine what is possible going forward for every single generation that follows. And I'm going to give you a way, all of us a way, to be able to help them out right now. As you know, they have left the state of Texas to break a quorum, to deny Greg Abbott, Donald Trump, those Texas Republicans, the numbers necessary to steal 5 congressional seats currently represented by Democrats in Texas. Now, it is an expensive proposition. The flights, the meals, the lodging, the fines, $500 a day per person for each and every single one of those 56 members of the state legislature, each and every single one of them Democrats, who has followed their conscience to do the right thing by themselves, by the state of Texas, by you and me, and by America. If you want to support them, there is a way that we can do this. You can text the word FIGHT to the number 20377. That word is FIGHT, and you can text it to 20377. Now, let me make my case for those of you who aren't already picking up your phones and making this text right now. There's this story that I love, perhaps beyond any other, of our country, the Democratic Party, at least within the 20th century. On the heels of signing the Civil Rights Act into law, the first president from the state of Texas, Lyndon Baines Johnson, we have some LBJ fans, about 5 of you out there, thank you. LBJ's in the White House in the Oval Office, meeting with Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., who had just won the Nobel Peace Prize, with Andrew Young, and the 3 of them are sitting around the table in the Oval Office, and Dr. King says to the president, Mr. President, we will forever owe you a debt of gratitude for what you have done. You used every ounce of political capital that you had to make sure that we could pass and that you could sign into law civil rights, something that we have been working on in this country for nearly 90 years. Now, Mr. President, as good as all that is, we would like to vote. And the president says, what are you talking about? He says, in Selma, Alabama, for example, where the majority of her citizenry is black, there's not a single black voter on the rolls there today, and we want you to do something about it. And the president responded to Dr. King, I would like to. I think you're right, but I just don't have the power. I used it all on getting civil rights done. A dejected King and Young leave the Oval Office, and Young turns to King and says, well, what do we do now? And King says, we go out there and we get that man some power. So over the coming days and weeks and months, everyday Americans, just like you, just like me, we took to the State House steps. We wrote our members of Congress. We lit up the switchboard at the White House trying to break through until on the 7th of March, 1965, a 24-year-old John Lewis leads a march across the Edmund Pettus Bridge. And you all know this story, trying to get to Montgomery, Alabama, just to win the right to vote peacefully, nonviolently, and democratically at that. He nearly lost his life. He and other marchers beaten almost to death. One person actually died over the course of those days trying to get to Montgomery. Well, thank God that the press, not the enemy of the people, but the best defense against tyranny, were there to broadcast the images of what happened on Bloody Sunday. And it absolutely shocked the conscience of America. It galvanized this nation into action. Within 8 days, which is light speed in Washington, D.C., LBJ has convened a joint session of Congress. Every member of the House, every member of the Senate on the 15th of March, 1965. And in this great speech, which you should read or listen to on YouTube if you have the chance tonight, he says this, and I'm going to paraphrase. He says, as it was at Lexington and Concord, as it was at that courthouse in Appomattox, and I wish he'd added, as it was on that 6th of June, 1944, on those beaches of Normandy, so it is today in March of 1965 that everyday Americans are willing to lay down their lives so that this country can realize the hope and promise that it has offered to America and to the rest of the world. And you, the members of this Congress, have the power to confer it. By the summer of that same year, Johnson is able to sign the Voting Rights Act of 1965 into law, creating, for the first time in American history, something approaching a true democracy. It's built upon, in the following decade, someone you may have heard of, Barbara Jordan, also from the state of Texas, leads the reauthorization, this time making sure that language minorities are represented. So the folks who are picking your food in South Texas and the Rio Grande Valley, they can read the ballot as well. They can run for office. They can hold political power. And I think about those generations that came before ours. Those of 1776, those of 1865, those of 1944, those of 1965. God, how I wish sometimes that I was alive at that time to join that fight, to be willing to put my life down on the line with these great American heroes. How precious few generations get to join the fight to save this country. Well, folks, that could describe us today. In the last 6 months, since he was sworn into office, the current president of the United States has defied the co-equal federal courts. He has dismantled congressionally mandated programs and agencies and departments. He has colluded with corrupt public officials, and he has sought at every turn to dismantle this democracy. And now in Texas, he seeks to grab even more power, commanding the governor and the Republican legislature to redraw those boundaries and hand them these seats. Why is he doing this? Because he knows full well that his policies and his conduct over these last 6 months will lose him the House of Representatives without these 5 seats. It turns out that in America, we don't like seeing our fellow Americans cut from Medicaid by the tens of millions. We don't like these Gestapo tactics that terrorize hardworking Americans who are doing back-breaking work for this country. We are in no way down with the transfer of wealth in this last big, beautiful bill. $1 trillion moved from working Americans to the wealthiest people in this country, the 1%. That is in addition to the transfer of wealth that has been taking place for the last 5 decades. If you look at income and wealth inequality in this country, it has gotten worse year after year after year. Presidents of both parties included, but it is going warp speed right now under this president. America doesn't like it. They will not return Republicans to the Congress, so he seeks to steal these seats. And thick as thieves, the Republicans in Texas are going to aid and abet this theft. That is why those state House Democrats have left the state. They did not flee. They are fighting. They're not fighting for themselves or Texas. They are fighting for you here in Missouri, in Kansas, all across the country. So we've got to have their backs. If we fail, I am afraid that the consolidation of authoritarian power after the 2026 election, if we do not claim the House of Representatives by stopping this theft, by picking up another seat in Kansas and everywhere that we can front that fight, the consolidation of authoritarian power will be nearly unstoppable. Remember, from the moment he was sworn in as chancellor in January of 1933, it took Hitler 53 days to destroy German democracy. At every turn, every time he defied the German Constitution, every time he exceeded his constitutional authority, every time he dismantled the rule of law, the German press, the German public, the German politicians did too little and they did it too late. In 53 days, he went from this buffoonish thug who could barely hold power to the undisputed master and dictator of the German people. What does that mean for us here in America if we fail to win now the fight that will be waged in 2026? It means that there will be more masked, plainclothes, federal agents without badges or warrants sweeping our fellow Americans up off the streets. And lest you labor under the illusion that it's terrorists or thugs or gang members, it is everyday people, including U.S. citizens born in this country, children in some cases, deported to countries they've never been to before. It means more of Trump's political opponents targeted for retribution, for persecution, and yes, even for violence. In that big, beautiful bill that transferred these hundreds of billions of dollars from all of us to the 1% of them, that cut millions off of Medicaid, that's going to slash the payroll at the VA and harm those who put their lives on the line for this country even more. There's $45 billion for new detention capacity within immigration and customs enforcement and DHS. Now I ask you to ask yourself, if immigration to this country, including undocumented illegal immigration across the southern border, is at an all-time low, and it is at an all-time low, if we are conducting roundups in every major and minor American city alike to deport those who are here, sometimes legally here, paroled into place by President Biden and President Trump before him, if we don't have a problem with illegal immigration coming into this country anymore, why would we spend $45 billion for new detention capacity? We already have more detention capacity than we've ever had as a nation. I tell you what, they start with the immigrants, and they expect that you will not stand next to them because you don't want to be associated with terrorists and thugs and gangbangers and folks who have tattoos on their faces and throats and bodies as though that was some kind of fucking crime to begin with, right? Next, as Trump said on a live mic, they're going to come after the homegrown. And fair warning, his first day in office, first day he was sworn in, he issued an executive order repealing the 14th Amendment, which was ratified by this country in 1868, that guarantees you citizenship if you're born on the soil of this country. If his Supreme Court, the best that money can buy, ratifies that executive order, it sounds ridiculous to us now, but it won't. When they send the vans with those masked, plainclothes federal agents to your home or your neighbor's home because you were born in Cuba, but your kid was born here. You were born in Nigeria, but your kid was born here. Look, the O'Rourkes, as most of the other families in this room can attest to, are only alive at this moment because the United States took us in the midst of famine that killed 1 million of our fellow countrymen. And we've done our level best. We've done our level best to contribute, but they will not stop there. Next, it will be the political opponents of the administration. You all know the poem. They came for the socialists, but I wasn't a socialist, so I didn't say anything. Then they came for the trade unions, but I wasn't a member of a trade union, so I didn't speak up. Then they came for the Jews, but I'm not Jewish, so I didn't feel like I had to say a thing. By the time they came for me, there was no one left to say a word. This is exactly what they are doing to us now. It will go on steroids after the 2026 election if we fail to stop them now. Feel us. The other thing that we can expect to see is a complicit, cowardly, quisling Republican majority Congress rolling out the royal red carpet for a third Trump term. He's promised us that's what he's going to do. And you and I both know that past performance is the best predictor of future behavior. Look at what he did at the end of his first term when he was legally, lawfully, fairly voted out for office on the 6th of January, 2021, inciting an insurrectionist mob that constructed a gallows to hang his own vice president on the plaza of the House of Representatives, invaded that citadel, that holy place of our democracy, the first real attack on that place since the War of 1812, and he almost succeeded. That's what he did last time. I mean, can you imagine our great-great-great-grandkids reading about us in the history books? And they read about January 6, 2021. Then they read about Trump's campaign in 2024, where he promises to be a dictator on day one, where he says this will be the last vote you ever have to cast. And I can imagine some kid in the class raising his hand and saying, hey, miss, so these motherfuckers still voted for him to be president of the United States. And then when he was doing all this, they're going to be reading about us one way or the other, right? Just like we're reading about John Lewis, just like we're reading about the 300,000 Union dead who lost their lives to defeat the Confederacy and end the institution of slavery, just like we read about those who beat back the British Empire, the most powerful force on the planet at the time. They'll be reading about us as well. You know, and Lincoln, speaking of Appomattox, he warned us that we will either nobly save or meanly lose the last best hope of earth. This one is on us. Here's the way that I want you to think about it. Here's the way that I'm thinking about it. You know, we tell ourselves we want to fight back. We always use that phrase, those words, that position, and that posture. But what if we went beyond that? What if instead of reacting or responding or even resisting, and I know that was a popular word in the first Trump administration, but you had a resistance in Germany, you had a resistance in Poland, you had a resistance in the ghettos, you had a resistance in France, and God saved them. They were noble, they were courageous, but that resistance alone would not win the war, and it came too late to save too many. So I ask us, instead of fighting back, to think about fighting through this, think about fighting forward, think about getting off the back foot onto the front foot, off of defense onto offense, taking this fight to them everywhere. No more fighting back. We're going to fight them. And listen, fighting does not mean the DNC pours $1 billion into 7 battleground states, none of them named Kansas or Missouri or Texas or Alabama or Mississippi or Louisiana. What the hell are they saying to the rest of us? Do our lives count? Do our races matter? Does our representation mean anything to the rest of them? No, we fight on every front in every county of every state, Missouri, Kansas, Texas included. We follow your lead. That's what we got to do. I think about it like this. Instead of awaiting the blow to land from these would-be fascists, what if we throw our punch first and we throw it harder? We hit them before they know what's coming to them, and we seize the initiative in America. So that means getting behind these Texas state reps. Look, this is a tough business. Not only do they have the state troopers from the Department of Public Safety in Texas hounding them down, the Attorney General, Ken Paxton in my state, has vowed to hunt them wherever they are. Greg Abbott is threatening to arrest them on a second-degree felony, to put them behind bars for what they're doing, to vacate their seats in the legislature, hold new elections, and replace them with these other dummies or quislings that he can add to the lot that he already has in the legislature. And then in addition, you have Donald Trump with the long arm of federal law enforcement, I'm sure, pursuing these Democrats wherever they are scattered over the 50 states of America today. They need our help. We must have their back. If you can, please text FIGHT to 20377. Whether you give $5, $25, whatever you can do, that message will get through to them, because it's not just the money, although that's important. It is the encouragement and it is the moral support. They need to know that they are not alone in this fight because they are fighting for each and every single one of us. Let me say this in addition. Beyond fighting these fascists and would-be tyrants and the people who are trying to destroy America from within in the most powerful positions in the land, I think we also have to fight for something that our fellow Americans can believe in. I think in 2024, too many of our fellow Americans were confused about what the Democratic Party was saying. I mean, what were you trying? The Democratic Party was saying, like, I want to save democracy. And folks are like, what fucking democracy are you talking about? In Texas, it is harder to cast a ballot or to register to vote than in any other state. In the more than 10 years since Shelby versus Holder, we have the most obscene election laws in the country. One ballot drop-off location per county, including in Harris, it has 5 million people. A racial gerrymander that already exists in the state that has drawn out black and brown people from districts where their votes could count into places where their votes literally do not matter at all. A form of voter ID where you can use your license to carry a firearm to prove who you are at the polling place, but you cannot use your student ID at the University of Texas at El Paso to be able to do the same. And is it a democracy when one man can spend $300 million propping up the presidential candidate of his choice? So I ask Democrats to no longer talk about saving a democracy that has not existed for a long time in America, but instead to talk about building a democracy that is worth saving in the first place. What if we were for repealing Citizens United so corporations are no longer people? Money is no longer speech, and corporations can no longer spend unlimited amounts of money purchasing candidates, outcomes of elections, the policies that our country pursues. What if we use the political power that we actually had in 2021 to pass something like the John Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Act so that you could vote in the state of Texas, Alabama, Mississippi, Kansas, and Missouri? What if we got big money out of politics and that no longer called the shots? No more of this corporate stuff on the Republican side, or let's be honest with ourselves, the Democratic one as well. Real messages from real people in rooms like this where we listen to and speak to one another. Get politicians out of redistricting after we win power, return that power to the people, and let's set term limits on every office at every level, no matter where you are. That's a vision for the future. But we will not have a political democracy if we can't establish an economic democracy as well. If our fellow Americans cannot get what they need from a government of the many, soon enough they're open to getting what they need from a government of the few, or a government even of only one. We have to lay out a vision for the future, one that is worth saving and fighting for and voting for when Democrats are on the ballot. Guaranteeing, for example, that if you work only one job, that will be enough for you to be able to survive and thrive and take care of yourself and your kids. Guaranteeing that if you're sick or before you're sick, or so that you don't get sick, you're guaranteed to be able to see a doctor or a mental health care provider or a nutritionist or someone who's going to make sure that you're healthy enough and well enough to go to school, to work job, to take care of your kids, to live your life. What if you work at it, you're able to buy a home? Because too many Americans today are working at it and cannot afford one. Their parents could, their grandparents could. The number one issue I hear when I listen to young people at meetings like these is the hopelessness they feel at not being able to buy into, participate in, work for their piece of the American dream. We've got to make that possible. And then this, how many educators do I have in the room? Let's imagine a future where you could afford to teach school in this country without working a second or a third job to make ends meet, where you're treated with the respect and the dignity that you deserve, where we don't take away your tax dollars and convert them into vouchers and send them to private schools at the expense of the kids in your classroom. We need an economic future that works for everyone. And at home, as well as abroad, we need to make sure that we truly stand for, fight for the human rights of each and every single one of us. No matter who you are, no matter how you are born, we want to make sure that you know that you're in the right place. As they seek to distract us and divide us by attacking trans Americans, let us stand next to those trans Americans right now to let them know that we have their backs. Let us not abandon one another for the sake of political expediency or electoral convenience. This is a moment of truth. And the same holds true abroad. Imagine this, a future where America is no longer complicit in the bombing and starving and slaughtering of innocent children in Gaza. What if we used the awesome power and convening ability of this country instead to bring the nations of the region, the nations of the world together, if that's what it takes, to establish a sovereign, independent state for the Palestinian people, to work for their safety, the safety of the Israeli people, the safety of all people in that region, sowing peace and reaping prosperity, not just for those affected over there, but for Americans back home who right now are funding the bombing and the killing and the death that is taking place overseas in our name, which will be remembered by those who lost the lives of their children, of their parents, of their loved ones. That does not have to be our future. And I promise you, if we approach it that way abroad, we can approach it that way at home. No longer worrying about our family members being whisked off the streets, instead recommitting ourselves to this Constitution, to the rule of law, which sets us apart from so much of the rest of the world, from so much of the rest of human history. The Bill of Rights, due process, the ability to mount a defense and have the facts presented before a judge, the courts, the press, and the public. How many, God only knows, have already been picked up illegally, sent to detention illegally, deported illegally to a country whose language they do not speak, where they have never been before, including into a gulag in El Salvador, the largest on the planet. Very few ever come out of it. Life sentences. And we can't even know their names. Let me tell you, in addition to recommitting ourselves to that Constitution, I imagine this. Democrats have talked an awful good game about immigration for most of my adult life. But the proof is in the pudding. After the 2008 election, we had the White House, we had the House, and we had the Senate, and we didn't do anything. After the 2020 election, we had the White House, we had the House, we had the Senate, and we didn't do anything. Is it any wonder that the American people, who are not hard-hearted, who are not cruel at their basic core, say, look, I've been waiting for decades for the right party to do the right thing, and they're not, so I'm going to roll the dice with this guy. I don't like every proposal, everything he wants to do, but at least he's going to do something. When we win power, and I believe that we will, we must use this power. And that means finally using all the political capital and power like LBJ did in 64 and in 65 to rewrite this country's immigration laws in our own image, reflecting our own values. These ideas aren't incredibly complicated. Legalize every dreamer, every parent of every dreamer, every hardworking American doing backbreaking work all across this country. Most of us, Republicans, Democrats, independents alike, are on the same page. We believe in what I just said. We also agree that we should have control of our borders, know who's coming into this country, protect one another from violent criminals, whether they were born right here in Kansas City or in Ciudad Juarez, Mexico. That's just common sense. I'm on board for all of that. But don't let anyone tell you that immigrants are taking anything from us. They are contributing far more to the success of this country than they have ever been able to take back. We can do all this, but we have to decide that we're going to do it now. Just as Donald Trump is trying to steal the 2026 election and more power in 2025, right now in this month, they certified the maps in committee on Saturday. They were supposed to vote on them this Monday before the Democrats left. If they capture those Democrats and bring them back, it might be game over. Just as he understands the stakes and that the moment is now, we must see it just as clearly. And do not allow doubt or despair to creep into your mind right now. I know it is tempting, and I have been tempted too. Who are we against literally the most powerful man on the planet, who grows more powerful every day, who has every lever of power in this country, including the wealthiest people on the planet, who have his back with no backstop on what they can spend at all? I just want to remind you of who we are at the end of the day, where we come from, and what we're made of. Those 249 years, the British Empire, the armies of the Confederacy, the divisions of the Third Reich, those elected and armed thugs of the Jim Crow South. At every turn, we did the right thing. Now it is our turn, and I ask you, are you ready to fight to save this country, to make sure that we don't lose it forever? That's what we got to do. All right. Thank you, Kansas City. Thank you for being here today. ¿Está lista? Cynthia Cano, who is right here next to this part of the stage, she has another microphone. And so we're gonna try to, and the responsibility is mine to be brief in my answers. We're gonna try to get as many people into the conversation as we can, because there were, at last check, I don't know, 120, 130 people outside.
Waiting.
And they're waiting, and we promise we're going to try to hear as many people as we can in here, and then go outside and hear as many people as we can out there. So, Cynthia, anybody raise their hand?
Hi, how are you? Thank you for coming to visit us in Kansas City. We appreciate it. When you walked up, you said you liked my shirt, Beto 2020. I'd like this shirt a lot better if it said 2028. What do you think?
So, thank you, and thanks for wearing that sexy outfit that you got on right now. You look good in it. You know, one of the things I really like about what we're doing, you know, traveling all over Texas, traveling throughout the country right now as well, is we're bringing people together with no other agenda than making sure we do the right thing at the right moment for our country. I don't want your vote. I'm not asking for your support. In fact, everything that we're trying to raise right now, 100 cents on the dollar, goes to those Texas State House Democrats to support that fight. So, listen, as one of my favorite Republicans, second only to Lincoln, said, Teddy Roosevelt, we each must do all we can with what we have where we are. And so if that is volunteering for one of the outstanding organizations that has helped us organize tonight, whether that's the Kansas Democratic Party, the Missouri Democratic Party, Indivisible, which is here as well, registering voters, turning people out, having conversations outside of this room, let us do that. And if the time comes to be a candidate or to support a candidate, I'm down. I'm a team player just like you are, and I'm just as willing to wear your shirt as you are to wear mine. So, okay, I'm down.
Okay, here's our next question.
Hello, my name is Joanne. I'm from Blue Springs Democrats. I just want to reiterate, thank you. We have to support those people because Missouri's governor is trying to do the exact same thing. He's gerrymandering us, and he wants to do away with black and brown districts. He repealed our vote, Proposition A. He removed sick pay. He removed the wage that we had voted for, and he said, we didn't understand what we were voting for, and they're trying to put it back on the ballot. So we have to support these legislators. I gave $10 this morning, and I will give again, and I will stand to fight. These are our rights. We're not going to let them take it. These are
That's
our
right.
rights.
That's right. Wouldn't it be amazing? Wouldn't it be amazing if, given all the places that we expect there to be Democratic firepower, that the solution came from Missouri, the solution came from Kansas, the solution came from Texas. That's why I think supporting these state legislators who are stopping Trump and Abbott from stealing these 5 congressional districts, that is the fight. There's so many other important things going on in the world. This is the fight. If we can win this one, it will stop them in their tracks. They may not have the courage to try this in the other states where they are contemplated. The whole country, I was using some metaphors and analogies from American history. You all know your World War II history. The Spanish Civil War, that's what's taking place right now. Both sides are just whatever they can do to win this contest in Texas will determine the outcome of the larger contest in 2026. So to be clear, I'm not asking on behalf of the people of Texas, right? I'm asking on the 330 million of us whose lives depend on the outcome of this fight, right? So we got to do all we can with what we have, where we are. And for those who have not had the chance, it is texting FIGHT to 20377. You did it. All right. Everyone who does it will get a cookie. I don't know who gives you the cookie. But just ask for one. All right, here we go.
I agree with your statements that we are in a constitutional crisis and we need to stand up and fight with veracity. For young people today, I'm very much concerned about their education and how they're going to access it. Oh, by the way, my name is Jordan Herrera. Thank you. Nice to see you. Thank you. So what are your the Biden administration did an excellent job fighting for student loans. Unfortunately, many of you may not know, it's our state, Missouri, that killed student loans nationally 4 times. Josh Devine and Maria Lanahan, the two who authored those, they just got federal judgeships over in the East, over by St. Louis. We can't let this go. So I'm curious to know, what are your thoughts, plans, and what can Democrats do to ensure that young people have adequate and equitable access to education?
You add all this up. We were at a town hall yesterday, and a woman stood up and she said, I'm involved in early childhood education, and they're slashing my program. These little kids are just getting their start in life. And you probably know, given the question you asked, it's a compounding problem or it's a compounding benefit. If I'm learning to read at age 2 or 3, if I have that kind of attention and care, especially my parents are working 2 or 3 minimum wage jobs just to make ends meet, my prospects as a 6th grader in math, graduating from high school in 12th grade, going on to college or vocational education or serving in the military, whatever I'm going to do, much more likely that I'm going to succeed. They're cutting that right now. They're cutting the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act. So if your child or grandchild has a learning disability, is challenged in their access at school, those funds are going away. They're cutting Title I. If your family household doesn't make enough so that your kid has the calories she needs to burn in the classroom so that she can actually take in what the teacher is giving her, they're cutting the Title I funds as well. And not only are they cutting the student loan repayment programs, they're literally cutting hundreds of billions of dollars going to America's universities across the land. We've been reading about Harvard and Columbia, and, whatever happens to them is whatever happens to them. But they're cutting funding at our state research universities as well across this country right now. It's hurting people's ability to obtain an education. That's pretty damn bad. It's also hurting research into cancer and to Alzheimer's and the diseases that people are dying of literally right now. We were at a town hall in Humble, Texas, which is just outside of Houston. This woman stood up, says, I'm 72 years old. I'm taking care of my 77-year-old husband who has Parkinson's. He's on Medicaid. They're cutting Medicaid in Texas. We already have the worst insurance rate in the country. We have not expanded Medicaid, even though Johnson signed that thing into law in 1965 as well. And so she says, with her hand up and tears streaming down her face, our best case scenario right now is that he dies before I do, because if I go before him, he is absolutely out of luck. There is no facility that we can afford. There's no care that he will be able to receive. And she says, I'm just going to fight with everything I've got. It is both the attack on science and learning and progress and medicine, as well as the attack on education. And I would argue, as Jefferson warned us, this educated citizenry is what they fear more than anything else. And they're trying to dismantle it right now.
Okay, here we go.
So let's add your dream of accessible higher education to our vision, and let's go out there and fight for it. And when we win, again, look, Democrats, I hope you agree with me, really good folks by and large, right? But for far too long have cared far too much about being right, more than they have cared about being in power. The other side cares about being in power more than they care about being right or being anything at all. We were doing an event with Mandela Barnes, a former lieutenant governor in Milwaukee a couple of days ago, and he says, when we win power again, we've got to drive that car like we stole it. We got to run the tables. We got to run the tables on them. All right.
Okay, we're gonna do, there's lots of hands up, so I'm gonna start doing 2 questions at a time. She'll ask, he'll ask, and then we'll let Beto answer.
Okay.
Thank you. I'll be very brief. My name is Jamie Berry. I live in Kansas City here. I'd like to make a request of the Democratic leadership. Can we coalesce around a single person or a couple people? I mean, this infighting for who's going to run for president, who's going to lead, you know, every day I get bombarded by requests for money from a different Democratic group. And I would like us to utilize our power and be laser focused and have one person driving the car. And I just want to make sure we don't spend too much time trying to boil the ocean for the right message, but we pick the couple things that you talked about and we go with those. We'll eventually get to everything, but we've got to move now and we've got to move fast.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the words that you were saying earlier. However, Beto, 85% of Palestinians in Gaza are at risk of severe malnutrition. This is irreparable harm. 70,000 children, if they don't get food in the next month, are going to die. Like I said, I appreciate the words and the strength that you talked with about it earlier, but there's one thing you didn't say, and that is calling it a genocide and calling for a full arms embargo, an arms embargo on the state of Israel.
Yeah. So I'm going to answer both these questions. On the first question, we talked about driving the car like we stole it, and who's going to be the driver of that car, right? Who are we putting behind the wheel? I feel your frustration. We're not going to get that leader. We're just not going to get that savior. They're not going to emerge right now. And in this democratic process, we have to look at this as a virtue and not as a bug or a problem with the system. And here's why I think this is a good thing. Anybody who wants to be relevant, anybody who wants to lead, anybody who wants our votes, anyone who has a shot at winning that position of power and public trust has to be in the fight right now. They have to be leading, they have to be listening, they have to be moving forward, collecting these dreams, putting them together in a vision and going. And I still believe in this democracy, as battered and beaten up and struggling as we are, that this thing still works. This government of, by, and for the people. So if there's some way, and I hear you, if there's some way to accelerate this process, right? So that we're not waiting 3.5 years for that person to emerge, or that vision or platform or agenda to be clear to America, all the better. I'm going to do my part. And what we do at every single one of these meetings is we listen to everybody and we have these conversations. We live stream it so anyone else in America can see it. We also share this on social media, and I share it at the next meeting. I mentioned the lady in Humble, Mandela Barnes in Milwaukee, the early childhood education person in Indiana. So all these stories, believe me, I listen, I remember. I'm taking them with me, and I'm going to make sure that whoever that person is has the value and benefit of everything we're doing. On Gaza, I really appreciate your question. And I have really not wanted to answer this question. And I've read, I don't know how many articles, if you're like me, what is the definition of genocide? And is what Israel's doing, does that meet the technical, the legal, the commonly understood definition of genocide? And here's the other challenge. Let me, folks, if you ask a question, I should be able to answer, right? All right, here we go. It's a good question. And just let me wind up for a sec, okay? This is not an easy one. One of the big challenges that I have faced and I've really struggled with, in my mind, and I think in the minds of many Americans, especially many American Jews, the word genocide is synonymous with what the Nazis and Hitler did in the final solution to the... Hey, sir, buddy, come on, man. I'll let you say your piece. We gave you the microphone. Let me answer. Okay. No, Cynthia, let me give him the answer. Hey, Cynthia, let me just let him hear the answer to this. All right. Are we cool? Can I just say my piece?
Please, yeah, continue.
Okay. Just don't be an asshole, okay? That's all I'm asking. Just don't be an asshole. All right. So here's the thing. Here's the thing. Yeah, if you're interrupting me, that's exactly what you are. So here's the thing. Here's the thing. For many Americans, for many people around the world, that term genocide is synonymous with what happened to the Jews. More than 6 million who were slaughtered, incinerated. Children, men, women, absolutely innocent of any crime, any culpability, any participation in anything that would warrant that kind of inhumanity. And yet out of that, especially amongst American Jews and Israeli Jews and Jews all over the world for that matter, was this promise that we would never see this again, that we would not be quiet because our silence would be complicity in a terror, even if it didn't match the magnitude or scale of what happened under the Third Reich in Germany and Poland and throughout Europe, that we would never be complicit in it or allow it to happen again. When I see what the Israeli military is doing in Gaza right now, with the full complicity of the United States, funding the Israeli Defense Forces, literally giving the bombs that are used on defenseless people, on children, on hospitals, on schools, when it's not that children will starve in Gaza, children are starving to death right now in Gaza. More than 50,000 people have been killed so far, most of them, vast majority, by any measure or count, absolutely innocent. And the leaders of Israel have said that they want to wipe all Palestinians off the map in Gaza. They are trying to literally extinguish a people from the planet, from their homeland. And by those criteria and those facts, to give you your answer, sir, yes, it is a genocide. There you go.
Okay, here's our next question. Sorry about that. Here we go.
Look, buddy, look. I'm going to give you some advice. Wait, I'm going to give you some advice. I'm going to give you some advice. If your goal, hey, look, if your goal, look, hey, we're all on the same team. Let me, Cynthia, let me say this to him. Let me say this to you. If you want to be right and righteous and say the right thing, I mean, more power to you and God bless you. If you want to save lives, you're alienating people with the way that you behave. If you want to bring more people into the conversation, you have got to be cool, okay? You're alienating people with the way you behave. Yeah. All right. We heard you. We heard you. We're going to go on as
Yes.
we got you. Okay.
Free Palestine!
All right. Look, just to freelance for a second while Cynthia grabs the mic and comes to the next question. I got to tell you, as dickish as that behavior was, and as alienating as that is, and as counterproductive, like if you want to save people's lives, we got to bring more people into the conversation. Shouting people down, judging people, canceling people, that's just not going to do it. We're just not going to get there. But I sympathize with the passion and the urgency. There is a clear wrong being committed in the name of this country, and I'm with people who are angry and just can't take it anymore. They see this injustice day in and day out. And it's not just that Donald Trump is complicit. It's that our previous president was complicit in this as well. And I think he was a great president on so many levels. I think Joe Biden did so many great things for this country. But on this issue, you know, Americans, especially young people, they just see this as clear as day. And when we don't reflect that in the work that we're doing and the actions that we take and the words that we use, I get that. But we do have to find a way to be cool with one another. And we have to find a way to have a conversation. And we have to find a way to bring people in. So let's keep working on it. Let's keep working on it. Yes, Ms. Connie. Don't yell at me, okay? Don't yell at me.
Oh, I wouldn't yell at you. So actually, that situation ties into what I'm saying. So as I look around this room, I do not see enough 18 to 35-year-olds. So I don't see enough. And for that reason, I do think it's slightly disrespectful to say that that is taking away the light and all that, but that is the voice of young people that want to see change. And we as Democrats will not get any further if we cannot play into that. But my question goes, what is the Democratic Party going to do to coalesce around the 18 to 35-year-olds and get them involved, because they're not in this room right now. And if we don't have 18 to 35-year-olds, we will not win this next election cycle. And then second to that, what are Democrats going to do to hedge against AI?
Yeah. Wow.
And then, Beto, we're going to take number 2 question right here.
The root of the problem with Israel and people, the government not standing up against Israel is because of AIPAC. Because Democrats and Republicans have been taking money from Israel and we've been feeding them money right back. And you spoke about taking big money and getting the PACs out of the elections in the future, and that is an absolute must, especially AIPAC. And my other thing is Democrats need to get behind recounts and getting behind the voter manipulation that happened during the election. CIA, a veteran of the CIA just came out with a book that covers It's a free book. Everybody can download it. It covers human trafficking and how that connects everything from the AIPAC, from the Epsteins, from manipulating our government and governments around the world. So people need to support the electiontruthalliance.org.
Thank you. Thanks for these great questions. Okay. So I'm going to try to take them. I'm going to try to take them both or all three because you had asked too. You know, on young people, this stuff is not rocket science. Like the Democratic National Committee and these consultant industrial complex folks, they'll spend untold amounts of money studying young people, doing focus groups, doing data analysis, maybe employing AI to try to get to the answer. You know, I may be old school, but we show up and we listen to young people where they are. We go to high school campuses. We go to college campuses. We go to community college campuses. We go to vocational school campuses. We go to bars. We go to nightclubs. We go to parks. We go to union halls. We go everywhere that we can find the people who are going to this gentleman's excellent point, determine the outcome of the next election. And as we're doing tonight, we speak a little, but we also listen. And we try to listen a lot and incorporate what we're hearing into what we're saying. And one of the things that we just touched on is just the moral clarity that has been missing from our party. We become enamored of this triangulation and calculation and can we meet in the middle on issues that are as clear as day. There's just no middle to them. I mean, look at the other side. Have you ever heard Donald Trump meeting anybody in the middle? Do you think it's ever crossed his brain that he should consult a focus group before threatening to invade Greenland or adopt Canada as the 51st state or whatever other harebrained crazy-ass idea he comes up with? Part of the reason that he picked up so many voters, especially young men in this last election, is because he at least appeared to be honest and authentic and speaking the thoughts that were coming through his brain. Listen, folks, I'm sorry, but on our side, we look so goddamn robotic and programmed with everything that we say. Same talking points again and again and again. We got to be honest. And look, and we got to show up. In Texas, when I ran against Ted Cruz, there was this big push against us spending time with young people. They say, hey, young people talk a good game. Young people do not vote. So we said, look, we wouldn't vote either if no one bothered to show up and listen to us. We went to every single campus we could find in the state of Texas. At the end of the day, not only did we win more votes than any Democrat in Texas history, young voter turnout 18 to 29 years old was up 518% from the previous midterm. So we got to do that. In this post-truth world that we're living in, with alternative facts, where the official in charge of the Bureau of Labor Statistics says, hey, we didn't create as many jobs as you were hoping for, Mr. President, and Mr. President fires that person, replaces them with someone who is going to cook the books, falsify the numbers, and tell us whatever he wants to hear. That is going to be compounded by the problems of AI, where we will not be able to distinguish what that president, with a PAC that has $250 million in the bank to spend on this stuff right now, is going to put before the eyes of you and me and these 18 and 19 and 20-year-olds that we're talking about right now. I don't pretend to have the answer to the excellent question that you just asked, but I do know that if we listen to one another, especially these young people, so many of whom are at the vanguard of this, both in combating disinformation with the truth and in thinking about what it looks like in a future to work in America, where not thousands or tens of thousands, but hundreds of thousands and millions of jobs ultimately are going to be replaced by AI. They are going to have the answers. If we want to say, look, I've been in the workforce now for 32, 34 years. Somehow I'm going to know this. No, I want to listen to the young woman who's coming up right now in the workforce who knows exactly what's going on. So we will listen, and we will find the solutions there. On AIPAC or any of these other political action committees that hold extraordinary sway over members of Congress, I think the question just hit the challenge right on the head. You know, how can you have, in my hometown, 6 years ago yesterday, 23 people slaughtered by a guy who legally purchased a weapon of war, an AK-47, hundreds of rounds of ammunition, listening to Donald Trump, drove to El Paso, Texas, walked into a Walmart, blew these 23 people away in under 3 minutes in a city that doesn't lose 20 people to murder in an entire year. And not a single thing has changed in the state of Texas or in America to make it any less likely that it happened again. In fact, just a couple of years later, an 18-year-old bought 2 AR-15s, hundreds of rounds of ammunition, walked into Robb Elementary in Uvalde, Texas, and killed 19 kids and 2 teachers. And those children were only identified by the shoes they were wearing because their bodies were so badly disfigured. This high-impact, high-velocity round fired at close range. What the fuck do you expect? But you know what? There is an answer for the otherwise inexplicable. These pressure groups, like the NRA, like the gun lobby, that pour hundreds of millions of dollars cumulatively into our elections, they are the ones buying our representatives, buying their complicity, buying their silence, buying this death that we see on our streets. No other nation on the planet sees anything close to this. So whether it's this gun violence, whether it's the otherwise inexplicable policy on Gaza and the connection to AIPAC and the pressure tactics that they use, listen, this stuff is bad. We should not have political action committees. Money should not equal speech. Corporations should not have personhood. We should be able to replace this. If we don't, we lose it. All right, Ms. Cano.
Right over here, Beto, and I have time for 3 more questions.
Okay, and then we're going to try to get outside and see the folks who are there.
Hi, Beto. I want to
Tell us your age first.
I'm only 20 years old.
20 years old. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. I've been interested in politics since I was only 14 years old. So I think I kind of wanted to piggyback off of that. So power to the young people. I think on behalf on all of young people, I'm kind of here today as well. I'm also here with my father, who immigrated to this country 20-something years ago. 27 years ago. One of my main questions was kind of, what can you tell young people, especially first generation people like myself, that kind of fear for our parents every day? It hasn't really necessarily been easy. And I know also kind of with my stance on politics and what I want to do in the future, I always get hit with the, well, politics isn't that good of a thing. It's dirty now, all these things. What can you tell me, a young person who wants my foot in the door, who wants to do things in politics? What could you tell me right now with the false sense of hope that people are giving me?
Yeah. Wow. It's a nice, easy question to take us out. Well, first of all, thank you for sharing your story. I'm glad that you're here. You mentioned one of the things that young people and all of us are witnessing right now. I mentioned these Gestapo tactics, really unprecedented. When I watched the young woman who I think was a graduate student at Tufts, who committed the awful crime of writing an opinion piece in her student newspaper about the war in Gaza. And somebody from like a second or a third story apartment window captures the scene on video of these agents, masked, plain clothes, never showing a warrant, do not have a badge, whisking her up off the street. My daughter is 17 years old. If a bunch of guys jumped out of a van looking like that and captured her and threw her into the van, I would assume she was being kidnapped, that she might be tortured, that they may kill her. I mean, who knows what they're doing, because this is not supposed to happen in the United States of America. It is happening in the United States of America. And it's not just Tufts students and Columbia students and Harvard students. In the immigration courtroom in the federal building in El Paso, Texas, when immigrants who may have been in the position that your father was years ago are dutifully reporting back, as they're supposed to do every year or every so many years as green card holders, for their interviews, they are being taken into custody. They are being processed at lightning speed, and they're being deported out of this country without any contact with their families. Now, in some cases, they have been here for 20 or 30 or 40 years, working jobs. Let's admit that no one born in this country is willing to work, contributing far more into Social Security, property taxes, income taxes than they will ever draw down in benefits. And so, similar to some of the questions we've been asked earlier, if we are silent in the face of all this, we're complicit. And what Trump is betting, when he attacks immigrants, or when he attacks trans Americans, or when he attacks some group that is, he figures, unpopular and one that you won't want to associate with, that he'll pick us apart one by one by one. And that's why it is so incredibly important that we literally, physically stand with one another. In those same immigration courts in El Paso, where these people are being illegally detained and captured and deported, there are everyday citizens just such as yourself. And I'd encourage you to do this if you're not already doing it at the federal courthouse here in Kansas City, who are showing up and they are bearing witness to what is happening. And they are testifying, and they're grabbing the cell phone number of that person's closest relative so that they can call them and let them know that their husband or their mother or their wife or their son is in detention, so that we can try to track them down. We need to see more Democratic leaders, more leaders, period, who cares about the party, doing this as well. I think that is inspiring to me. That's the kind of person that I want to follow. And the last thing that I'd say is, not only are you old enough to vote, for which we're grateful, you are old enough to run for office. And we are all old enough to be able to support you and get behind you. If I could give you any advice, it is, do not wait your turn. Do not stand in line. Do not hope that some cavalry is going to ride to the rescue. We're counting on you. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, right over here in front, Beto, and I have a really quick update. So since we started the town hall and you announced the number to text, we have raised $2,985.
Awesome. Thank you.
We are trying to get to 5.
That's amazing.
Trying to get to 5.
So the number again, someone asked, you text the word fight to 20377. 20377. I was trying to think of a catchy way to remember that number, so I looked up 203. That's the area code for Connecticut. So 1977 was a great year for rock and roll. You had The Clash, the Ramones, you had Blondie, Debbie Harry, Talking Heads, punk rock. All right.
So, Beto, thank you for coming, and I want to thank this young woman for standing up and saying, and thank your dad for sticking in all these years. I'm sure that has not been easy. I know how my parents got here, and it's not easy. But to piggyback with that, I'm on the Kansas side, and tomorrow in Wyandotte County, we have a major election. And what I want to say about that is that local matters. Local elections matter very much. The other thing I want to say about that, you really need to research your candidates. In regards to the raids that happened last week in Lenexa and Johnson County, our government was involved. I can tell you that the chief of staff of the mayor had evidence presented to her in El Centro in regards to what was going on back at the end of last year. And I know that because I took it to her. Instead, what she did is a few weeks ago gave one of the candidates and one of the people on the evidence a great award from the county, from the city. We cannot accept that. There is lots going on, and this government is involved in the disappearing and the mistreatment of our people. We cannot stay silent, because today it's us, tomorrow it's you, tomorrow it's a woman, it's all of our families, it's your next door neighbor, it's your helper, it's your teacher, it's your loved one, it's your spouse. I met accidentally with one of the victims' families at a grocery store the day after it happened. And this man was half drunk because he couldn't deal with what happened to his relative. They dragged her out from underneath a table by her hair. They dragged her around the floor by her hair. They picked her up off the floor by her hair. The back of her head was bleeding, is what he told us. And that she was grateful because she believes she got the best treatment of all the people in the KCK location. This inhumanity is ridiculous. Our police department did not have to accompany and be at the side of ICE. The mayor in January told the community that he would not have this done, that we would not participate unless we were mandated. And yet, the KCK PD went there. They watched. Nobody said, hey, that's inhumane. They let it happen. Next time, it will be you. We need to stand together. This election tomorrow matters. There is 3 candidates for mayor, and I can tell you with 1,000,000%, the one that I know that supports for all people is Rose Mulvaney Henry. We need to make sure everyone is supported, everyone is protected, and we cannot allow our local government to turn this entire area MAGA. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you for saying that.
This is our last question.
Thanks for coming, man.
Thank you.
Really appreciate it. This is my first town hall. This is great. I'm glad the Kansas Democratic chairman is here as well, because my question goes to either you. So none of this would happen if there wasn't a credibility problem with the Democratic Party.
Yeah.
Okay? It's been going on a long time, and Nancy Pelosi lost me when she said, I can trade individual stocks. I'm regular. I'm sorry. That lost me with her, regardless of all the good deeds that she did before. So here's my question, or I'd like you to comment on it. Why do we need a bill for term limits? Why do we need a bill to disclose openly what I do with lobbyists, give the minutes of it, whether it's, as long as it's not classified, right? Why do I need to trade stocks or not trade stocks because there's a bill? I don't need a damn bill. The Democratic Party can say, hey, if you're going to be a candidate, we're going to do these things now. We're going to say 12 years, 18 years. That's enough. Unilaterally. So I want you to comment on credibility, because it'll go a long ways with people like me if I can believe what you're saying, if it's followed up with actions. Unilaterally. Fuck them. They're full of corruption. They're open about it. Why don't we do this?
Yeah.
And try to turn some heads and turn some hearts that we really were going to follow up with it.
Yeah. Great question. Thank you. Listen. Sorry, Cynthia.
Sorry, Beto. He said he'd be incredibly quick. We're just going to add one more.
I'm going to take them both.
Beto, I'm George Cannell. I grew up in the Rio Grande Valley.
All right. 956.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I've lived in Corpus Christi, San Antonio, and El Paso. My question is, I live here in the metro area of Kansas City, and my brother lives there, has wonderful kids. They're all educated, but they've gone astray. And what I mean by going astray is that they're Republicans. And I can't reach them. I can't reach them. My brother and I, we grew up poor. We wore chanclas. We, just normal people growing up in the 50s and 60s. Our mom was ill. She passed away when we were young. So, we did the best we could. But how would you reach these Texans, especially Latinos, that, they don't know what they're doing?
Great. I'll take both these questions. Thank you for asking. So I think these two issues are connected, the credibility and the believability and the trust that I think Democrats have lost in many cases. I mean, we can't pretend that 2024 didn't happen or that it was the result of a natural disaster or the comet striking the country. I think Donald Trump is a unique, extraordinary historical figure, but I think that election was winnable, and I think there were a lot of things that Democrats did over time, probably myself, present company included, that contributed to that, and we got to learn from it. So, whether or not we need laws, I get your point. I mean, I would say we need the laws because human nature is such that power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely, and that's what the Republicans are doing in Texas right now. But listen, Democrats have done it before in other states. Gerrymandering is not a partisan issue. It is a human problem, right? And so we have laws like the Voting Rights Act, unfortunately struck down in 2013. But I take your point. When we were running, I mentioned that Senate race against Cruz in 2018. When I told my colleagues in Congress that I was going to be running against Cruz, they were like, you're fucking nuts. Like, this guy was the runner-up for president. He's got incredible cash on hand, 100% name ID. And I said, but wait, we're going to make it even more interesting. We're not going to take any PAC money at all. No corporate PAC money, no Sierra Club PAC money, no Planned Parenthood PAC money. Like, no PAC money, no union PAC money, just no PAC money at all. It has to come from a living, breathing human being. And you all know the end of that story. I mean, though we didn't win, 12 Democrats won election to the state house, 2 Democrats won election to the Congress, changing the balance of power in the national legislature. 17 black women won election to judicial positions. Really great things happened because of that race. And we raised a land speed record, $80 million in a Senate race back in 20. That was the record for any Senate race, and it all came from people. None of it from PACs. So it just turned out that doing the right thing not only proved our ability to raise the money without PACs, but we were talking about young people, and you were talking about the gentleman from the 956 from the Rio Grande Valley, talking about reaching young people, young Latino men, but young people in general. I cannot tell you how many young people in that campaign in Harlingen and Donna and Brownsville came up to me and they're like, you know what? I hate politics. I could care less about the Democratic Party, the Republican Party. I was not going to vote. And then I saw that you were running without taking PAC money, that you have no consultants, that you've never taken a poll, that you're going to every county in Texas, that you'll allow anybody to come in. They can be wearing an AR-15, and many did come into our town hall meetings wearing an AR-15 or a gun at their side or a MAGA hat on their head. No me importa. I could care less. The fact that you're here means everything to me. That's all I need to know. And that, I think, broke through and allowed us to reach people that we otherwise would never have connected with. It blew through the cynicism or the lack of trust that perhaps we lost because of our actions in the past, because we were walking the talk. I think that goes not just for how we campaign, but it goes for how we govern. All these promises that we make as Democrats, I mentioned immigration before because nothing pisses me off more than our failure to act on that, because I think it really did result in our loss of power in 2024. When we win power again, these young people, they need to see us use it and to use all of it. It is breathtaking the way that Donald Trump is using power. He's blitzkrieging through the Constitution, the rule of law, every system check and balance that we had in this country. I'm not saying that we do all of that, but I'm saying that we do all that we can, all that the law allows, maybe even push the boundaries of the law to get the things done that our fellow Americans need. And then, to the gentleman's point, if I could just disagree with you on this much, I agree that we need to walk the walk whenever we can, whatever the laws are. But once in power, I hope you all agree with me, once in power, we really do have to set new guardrails and laws and standards so that this stuff never happens again in our country. If we don't, shame on us. Kansas City, Missouri, Kansas City, Kansas, you all are amazing. Thank you for having us out today. We're going to get out there and go have some barbecue. All right. Thank you. Oh, yeah. Are you coming up? Yeah. Thank you all.